welcome along to episode 141 of Percussion Discussion. Before we get into it, please check out all of our social media. You can find us on all the usual places: Facebook, Instagram, and of course, our world famous YouTube channel, where you can find all of our conversations, past and present, with the video to accompany. Now, if you'd like to subscribe, that would be really great. There's not any adverts or anything, so it's pretty plain sailing. Should be quite enjoyable, hopefully. If you'd rather listen on the go, then all of our conversations are available in podcast form, and these are free to download from your favorite podcast provider, where you can sit back, listen, enjoy, and please rate and review. I don't know if anybody's actually done that yet, but come on, please do it. It's free, and it'll take a few seconds, and it will give me an immeasurable amount of pleasure. So just do it, and I'll be very happy. Thank you. Anyway, on to today's guest. One of the most likable guys in the business, and he's a great drummer with a great history of musicians who he's played with. He's currently the drummer for Mike Peters and the Alarm, but he's worked for Robbie Williams, Mock Turtles, Archive, Joe Strummer and the Mescaleros. He's worked for so many different people over his career so far. He's written a book called Clang, which I'm about to read. It's turned up today. He has his own studio where he records both himself and other people. And as if that's not enough, he's just started his own podcast as well, Clang the Podcast, which is very, very impressive. I've heard a few episodes. So yeah, it gives me great pleasure to welcome the wonderful man that is Mr. Steve Smiley Barnard. Smiley, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it, mate.
Pleasure.
Now I'm talking to you now like we've straight in. We've spoken for about an hour before.
Yeah, we just started chewing the fat and we realized it's already an hour in. Yeah.
So I'd like to end it with that anyway. And so, yeah. So no,
we didn't record it.
Yeah. So thanks for doing it, mate. Honestly, I appreciate it. I know you're a busy man, so it's very cool of you.
Pleasure.
So what's happening at the moment? Are you up to much? Anything interesting?
Yeah, kind of on the European festival run with Archive at the moment. Okay. It's been a weird year. I had a 50-date American run with the Alarm and Gene Loves Jezebel. So playing with both bands. Right? So it was like, here we go, double bubble. Here we go. This is going to be the best year ever. And then Mike Peters got ill, and I'd actually depped out Archive, first time in 20 years, right? So anyway, we kind of got into rehearsals for the Alarm, and we were all ready to go, and we did generally do it, and then he dropped the bombshell that the whole thing was off, right? Literally. So I was like, wow, man, that's like 2 months of my life and quite a bit of money. So I messaged Archive and I said, have you got the new drummer sorted? And they were like, yeah, we met him yesterday. He's great. It was the guy from Square Pusher, Alex. All right. And I was like going, oh, great. And they're like, why? And I told them what had happened, and bless them, they were like, well, look, dude, you know the way this works, it's your gig. So they just went back to him and told him the score, and he was totally cool as well, which is lovely, because that's a real, like, kind of, it just shows you that there is a heart out there. So we've been doing some great shows. We've been out to Istanbul, we did a couple in Greece, playing Georgia, done a few in France, Belgium, Switzerland. So yeah, loving it, man, loving it. So we got a few more, and then it all kind of wraps up around September.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I mean, that is a sickening thing. No fault of anybody, of course. You've cleared 2 months of your diary and gone, right.
Yeah, man. I was so lucky to get the other one back. I was, because if I hadn't, and the thing is, any drummer will tell you that really music, especially the tours and stuff, they kind of work 5 or 6 months ahead. No one announces a tour next Tuesday and are you free? Do you know what I mean? So so to have like 6 months run up to it and then lose it with a week's notice, it was horrible. But luckily, as I say, I pulled back the Archive stuff, so that's kind of filled the gap, really.
like you say, the reasons couldn't be more genuine, could they? You know,
No,
so
exactly right. Exactly right.
it's you won't be the only one that was gutted, that's for sure. But
No, that's right.
you know, these things sadly happen, and as you say, you know, the archive thing. Tell us about that gig, because that must be for a drummer, right? That's a dream gig. Every style you could ever want
It is.
in
It is.
one.
I kind of. It was weird because when I got it, it's like 20 odd years back now, and I just done Robbie and I just done Strummer. So that was the weirdest
Mm.
jump from A to B ever in music, you know. And I kind of was like, there was a few things floating around, and I might do this and I might do that. And Robbie's manager at the time, they'd just taken on Archive, and he just rang me. He just went, "I need you to go and put some drums on the track for me." And it was Archive, and I don't know if anybody's like those of you who aren't familiar with Archive. It's a Narnia that if you open it up, you will just love. There's 20-25 years worth of stuff. They are like a modern day Pink Floyd, right? If Floyd came along today, mashed with kind of beats and sounds and textures, it's like get Radiohead, Massive Attack, Pink Floyd, mash it all up in a big, you know, you can't describe it. And it's as you say, it's just a drummer's dream,
Mm.
man. Like so many styles in one evening. We've been going out doing like 1 hour sets at these festivals, and you just look tick, 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 you know, like and afterwards you just sit and go, that was one of the most enjoyable gigs I've ever done. It's because you just ticking every box emotionally and technically, and you know you have to warm up for it. I'll tell you that now.
But
But it's great for the you know your ability and stuff. So yeah, it's if you're a musician and you haven't checked Archive out, I urge you, not because it's me, because it's just musically one of the greatest things I've ever been involved in, man.
you know, you could play a track. I'm talking about blind now. You could play a track, and then you could play another track and not know it's the same band.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That it's that sort of night and day.
Yeah,
It's like, oh my god, it's the same band.
and they do that. They, you know, with the set at the moment, they're I think one of them's from like 22 of them was like 20 years ago. Three are from the last album. Like there's stuff from the middle gaps. It's like it's literally spanning it, but they all sound similar but different,
Yeah,
if that's possible. You know what I
amazing,
mean? Like,
amazing gig. I have to say.
yeah.
Do you know? Let's talk about, and I think this is perhaps overlooked a little bit. You know, you're busy. You've got your studio. You've got your podcast, which we'll talk about shortly. How do you go about keeping your diary? It must be, you know, at your level, it must be quite a challenge. You know, you don't want stuff to overlap. You want stuff
Mm,
to be seamless. I know it never
mm.
happens exactly like that.
It is tricky, and it's funny you should say that because, and I'm not going to name any names, but I've run into a couple of problems this year with diaries,
Mm.
thinking I was doing the moralistically right thing by giving somebody a year's notice and saying, look, I'm not available, and them saying, yes, but we've got this in the book, and me saying, I know, however, this is coming in and I really want to do so. That's one get, and it backfired on me spectacularly. Me thinking I was doing the decent thing,
Yeah.
and it really caused quite a lot of problems. Um, I still maintain honesty is the first thing you've got. I think if you say to somebody, I know I've got a gig with you, but this has come in and I'd rather do this, so I'm going to put a drummer in your gig, right?
Yeah.
Not many people will go, no, 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 no. You know, you've got to be honest about it. But I just think sometimes you can you can you can juggle, but there comes a point sometimes when you've just got one too many balls, and that's the point where I just think honesty is the most
Yeah.
important thing. You know, so yeah, it might look like I'm super busy and I'm always juggling loads of different things, which is very important. I think if you've got your finger in loads of pies, that's why generally you stay busy.
Mm.
If you lump everything into one touring band, that band will tour and then they will come off the road. You know what
Of
I mean?
course, of
And
course.
if you've got nothing else back in, so you know, I think it's great. I think most good drummers are either producers or teachers. You know, and you find that you know it doesn't matter how big the gig is. A gig's a gig.
Mm.
You know, I've got what am I doing Saturday? I'm playing at a wedding.
Are you
It's
really?
great.
Love
Yeah,
it.
I'm playing at a wedding somewhere for some function band. But that function band, I was looking at the members today. They all play for big people. Do you know what I mean? It's like, but they're just obviously free on Saturday. I
Yeah.
love that. I was thinking of, oh, what kit shall I take? You know what I mean? Like, you know, looking in the studio, going, I could use that, and then I could use it. It's a nice little kind of,
Yeah.
you know, because when you go on tour and I've got a fantastic drum tech, a guy called JP, French guy, who can hear. He does this thing, and I'm sure he must be the only tech in the world, but he's got such a brilliant ear. I'll be halfway through a show and I'll look across and he's looking at me like this. And I go, what's the matter? And he'll go like that, which means Tom too.
Right.
And he'll just go like that. And he'll make me tune it while the gig's going on. And I'll so say there's a gap. If I can play and I'll carry on playing a beat and I'll tune it, I'll go bat boom. And he goes, yeah, that's it. And you can hear he's got this most amazing ear. So my drums are tuned so beautifully. I'm very lucky to have him.
You let him do it. He's like, it's your thing.
Oh man, yeah. And I remember on one of the tours, I started rocking in because I was a bit bored, and I started rocking in like an hour before sound check, thinking I was being really helpful by going, oh, don't worry about line checking, JP, I'll do it. And he really didn't like that. And it took someone else to come in and say, listen, man, you're taking away the highlight of his day. Yeah. You know, don't you know, mess his day up. So yeah. I'll see you at 3.
Yeah, don't piss on his chips.
Yeah, man. He loves it. It's his chance, isn't it? But yeah, it's tuning drums. I think people can get too clever with it. Most good drummers with a good ear, with good drums, can tune a drum without hitting it, because you can find the sweet spot, right? You know, whether it be Pearl or BDC or whatever, right? Those drums are made. They've all got a sweet spot on them, and you can put the skins on and then hit it, and you're pretty close, I reckon. You know,
absolutely.
I think people get a bit confused with tunings up and down and bottoms up and all that kind of nonsense. You know.
And gig to gig, do you change kit sizes and stuff, or are you pretty much the same setup, whatever is put in front of you? Do you change much?
I go from the ridiculous one with Archive, which has got like 3 floor toms.
Oh God, right.
And, it's got 2 snares, 3 floor toms. It's very symmetrical. So it's got like a 13, a 14 to my left, 16, 18, and then a 10-inch snare. So they're all flat. So it's actually a perfectly symmetrical kit. And then if I go out and do like the Alarm, for instance, 4-piece. Yeah. That's it. 4-piece, 2 cymbals. All right, a crash and a crash ride. That's it. I love that. And I can quite easily go from one to the other as well.
So kind of the drums are almost representing the, and I don't mean this in a negative way, representing the simplicity of the music, really.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of straight up rock and roll, isn't it?
Absolutely. If I could get away with kick, snare, and hat, I would do it, right? Yeah. The reason there's a 10-inch snare in the Archive thing is because there's a couple of songs that have got 10-inch snare in them. That's the only reason. Yeah. It's not to be
just recreated. Yeah.
And I don't have to set them up, so the more the merrier.
Do you know what? I've never had the pleasure of having a tech. I've never done a gig big enough. But
you can't get a bit cocky.
It must be a double-edged sword at first, though, because you're so used to doing your thing, and all of a sudden you're putting your whole instrument in somebody else's hands, going, just
I think it depends on the gig and it depends on the tech. You know, generally drum techs, they know they're usually drummers, aren't they? Let's be honest. Or musicians, and they're generally brilliant at their job. But that is their job, and you've got to remember that. I remember getting years ago, I think a tech of mine missed his flight or something to a festival. So me thinking I was, aren't I great? I just said, "Oh, don't worry, I'll set up." So I rocked up, set this kit up, and the rest of the crew were giving me daggers. And I'm like, surely they should be high-fiving me and tell me how great I am for helping everybody out. And I walked off thinking I was going to get like a bit of a medal, and then got round the corner and kind of one of them kind of got me and went, "What are you doing, man? You're going to put him out of a job. If you can happily set it up, that's one less person on this crew. Don't take his job off him." I was mortified. Like, and I never did it again.
Yeah, that wasn't the thought that crossed you. You were like,
No,
no.
not the slightest. But yeah, you have to be a bit careful sometimes.
Oh my God. Yeah, I never thought about that. Well,
Yeah.
look, let's go back a bit. What's your kind of introduction to music? What was your like first memories? Because are you about my age? Are you kind of 70s, something like that? Early 70s?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Showbiz age. Yeah, mid-50s. Let's call it that. Let's call it that. No, my dad he was in a gospel band. My dad, he was a singer,
Ah,
guitarist. So I used to go and watch him play when I was really really small,
hmm.
and there was always music in the house. But it was beautiful because it was very kind of melodic. So there was as well as there being the Beatles and everything, there was John Denver and Cliff Richard and Glenn Campbell, right? So I think for me later in life, being a producer and stuff, the melodies were always my thing. So I grew up with that. And I could play drums really, really early. You know, that annoying kid, you know, the one in his high chair, and then the one they wheel out at parties and stuff like that, and the kid at school who had the drum kit in his bedroom and all that. So I was always it was the my dad, bless his heart, he always says to me, you're the jack of all trades, master of one, which was kind of,
Take that. Yeah.
I love that, you know, and I admire him, and he's still as chuffed with me like now, because obviously he helped me so much. And when I got to about 11 or 12, I was, as I say, I could play, you know, and everybody's kissing my ass, telling me, oh, this, you know, little kid, and my dad was like, he asked Roy Castle. Remember Roy Castle?
Yeah, of course I do. Yeah.
Roy Castle came to our school for some reason. He was doing an assembly or something.
Did he have his trumpet?
He did have his trumpet. So me and him did a little duet. Oh,
Oh,
where's the drummer boy? Come on, me and you. Da, da, da. Anyway,
oh,
afterwards,
what a memory to keep.
I know. In fact, I really should put him on my CV, shouldn't I?
You
Anyway,
should, yeah.
afterwards, my dad went up to him, and he was, and I remember it. I was only little when, I mean, and he said to him, Roy, you know, thanks so much and all that. He went, I've got to ask you a question. What do I do with him? And he went, get him out of his comfort zone. He said,
Hmm.
take him to a teacher. So I went to study with John Taylor, who was a jazz drummer. And he used to have a studio under Foots
Oh, okay.
in
Yeah.
Golden Square
Yeah. Yeah.
in London, right? And I used to go once a month, and he was amazing. This guy, he was like an older chap. He always wore a suit, and he had hush puppies. And he used to basically sit, and he was very jazz orientated, right? But he was clearly trying to teach me to read as well, you know, to get in the pits and stuff, right? So anyway, I went and did it once a month with him for about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And obviously I was growing up. I started playing in bands and pubs and all this kind of stuff. And then one day he put some music, and I clearly remember it was Day Tripper, right? So he used to put the record on, and I'd play along to it. So it's Day Tripper. So I'm playing it. Yeah, man, I'm smashing this. And he just walks up, and he just shuts the music and takes it off the stand while I'm still playing. And then he stopped it, and he said, look, he said, I've got to be honest with you, man. He said, I've got to, you know, he said, I think the time has come. He said, you're in the top two most natural players I've ever taught. He went, but you're in the bottom two for reading. He went, so I think we both can understand now.
Yeah.
It's, you're not going to play in the West End. And I was like, well, thanks for being honest, you know. And I think that night went and played for a band supporting a punk band in Hammersmith or something like that, you know. So I did day jobs until I was in my kind of early 20s, and then started playing in covers bands. And I was playing like 7 nights a week in like 10 different bands. And from that point, I was earning money from being a drummer, and that's where the doors opened. You know?
So you've not lost any sleep over not being in the West End then. It's kind of done you
No,
all right,
no,
hasn't it?
it has. And it's funny because my missus is in a James Bond theatre show. Right?
Okay.
And it's brilliant, called Cue the Music. If you ever get a chance to see it, it's absolutely brilliant. And it's like a 20-piece band. And
This is in the West End.
It has been in the West End.
Oh,
It's
nice.
traveling, a lot of
Oh,
it.
right,
So if
okay.
you ever see it. And anyway, in fact, it's coming to Wrexham. So I'll talk about.
Yeah.
But the guy who ran it, a couple of times he's been stuck, and he's like, can you bail me out? Now, me not being a reader, I had to write out in bizarre
Your
Smiley
language.
squeal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like 2.5 hours of Bond incidental. Da, 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 da. God knows how I got through that. And I remember thinking at the time, I wish I'd learned it a bit more, like the reading thing, you know. But you do get by, don't you? You just
You do.
you play to your own strengths. You know, I do gigs now, and I'm all right with notes. You know, stop. There's a stop in the middle, which is usually my favourite.
You
You'll
find
find it.
you find
You'll
and
find it somewhere.
there's 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 a hell of a lot more non-readers than there are readers in the world.
Yeah.
So,
And there's a
the world doesn't
a lot
stop.
of big names who don't read. You know, a lot
Yeah,
of the really top boys,
yeah.
they're not readers, and it's a brilliant thing if that's what you can do. And I admire a lot of some of my favourite drummers that you write it, they'll play it. You know, but if you read
That's
back
my
at
thing. That's
how
my.
yeah,
That's,
absolutely. You see, that's a fantastic thing. But I bet that's a natural thing in your armory. I bet that you were born with that, right?
I
Would you say that the kind of that capacity?
Possibly. I don't. That's an interesting one. I don't know. It's come from my dad, that, and it was always distilled
Right.
in with me, reading. And then to this day, I don't really do gigs unless it's sight, sight reading. No real.
Really? Amazing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
lazy. It's laziness. I'll be honest, Smiley. I'm a bit lazy as a drummer these days. The
It's a
dots there. Yeah,
fantastic thing,
can't
though.
do it. It's sort
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's amazing. I go, is there dots? Yeah, no, I'm good, thanks. I'll give you a ring. You can do it.
of- but it's not the be all and end all. So what? Tell me, around that time, what drummers were kind of exciting you at that point?
Well, I had this plan, right?
Mm.
When I started playing in all these covers bands, I sat down one day and thought, right, this is so cool. I'm playing 30 songs a night, right? So rather than just get through the gig, I am going to try to be that drummer for that 4.5 minutes, right? Now, all these bands were playing Zeppelin, Who, Police, right?
Mm.
So I learned to play like all those drummers. So I could be Bonham in one song. I could be Keith Moon. I could be Stuart Copeland. I could be Ringo. I could be Charlie Watts. And after a while, I kind of started taking a bit of everybody. I always said I became a quarter John Bonham, a quarter Keith Moon, a quarter Ringo Starr, and a quarter Stuart Copeland, right? Which is not a bad,
A healthy
you
mix,
know,
isn't it?
yeah. And
We're,
then
talk, we're
obviously over
talking
the years,
attention to detail here, aren't we? In
yeah,
song playing.
you're talking the power, the feel, the groove, the creativity, and then you chuck a bit of Mitch Mitchell in, and you
Hmm.
chuck a bit of Charlie in there. So I did that, right, and then I flipped, and I suddenly got back into. I was really into like Brzezicki and Mel Gaynor and Simon Phillips and all that for some reason. God knows why I went through that phase. So it was all like suddenly I was playing open handed and these big kits and and then I flipped again and I went right back like 4-piece kits.
Hmm.
I think I started doing the Mock Turtles and I think I took quite a big kit and Martin Cougar just went, well, you can get rid of at least half of that. You know what I mean? And I remember playing with them and thinking, it's not that cool. I don't really need all this nonsense, you know. And suddenly became a little bit of a kind of a slightly more image conscious, you know. And also once I started doing a bit of telly as well, I like the fact that there weren't many drums because you know, see you smile a bit more. You know?
Oh, so yeah, as you say, a healthy mix of influence.
Yeah,
There.
the
That's
best of everybody.
get
Yeah,
much, get much better than that, does it
no,
really?
exactly.
And it's nice because obviously we're talking days before Facebook and YouTube and stuff, and it's
Yeah,
kind of had to work a little bit more to find your influences. I miss
yeah.
that. I mean, it's
Well,
great
yeah,
the internet, but I miss those times of, do you know what? I'm going into. I mean, I'd go into a little town called Mold or into the city of Chester, and I'd every other Saturday, and I'd buy some vinyl, and it was like, oh my God, I can't,
yeah.
I miss that so much. I do.
Oh, mate. And for me, it was more being dropped into a gig and then reading this set list and not knowing what those songs were. Like I didn't know what When the Levee Breaks was. So I had to kind of at first get them to start the songs and then join in. And then, I remember doing a whole lot of love for the first time on a Sunday lunchtime in a pub with this kind of rock band that I sat in with. And all I remember was just down, 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 down. And I was sitting there thinking, I know this, but I don't. You know what I mean? I was only about 15. I was thinking, I know this song. I've heard it, but I don't know it. But I'm jumping in the deep end. And it was great. And then of course I went and listen to it, and you know, it's amazing, man. Like those things are they're set in stone, and they are there for us to learn from. They are like the holy grail for musicians, you know.
When the levee breaks for me is that is it.
It's amazing.
That's
For
the song.
groove.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people say that. A lot of people say that. And I probably agree with that, because that's my sound check song.
Oh,
That's my
yeah, totally
if I'm in a don't want to sound all big and like, but if I'm in an arena, for instance, and they go, can you just give us a kick snare hat? That's
okay.
boom, right, because it fills so much of a room. You know what I mean? But you've just got that sway about it. You know, it's amazing. It's amazing. And and there's so much more to it than just that bish bosh bish bosh. You know, he's swung like a mother, that boy.
Oh, not half. And I mean, and Bill Ward from Black Sabbath is another one for me. I'm a massive Bill Ward fan, still am.
Yeah.
And another one of a similar ilk is the original Alice Cooper drummer, whose name escapes me at the moment, but he has an amazing swing, and his name will come to me in a bit.
I'll tell you another one who had an amazing swing was Joey Kramer.
Oh yeah,
from Aerosmith.
Yeah.
I remember going to see Aerosmith and like things like Love in an Elevator. And I remember getting home and putting it on and realizing it was the whole song. And I was watching. I remember because the first time we saw him, we were kind of like level with them at Wembley Arena, and I just watched Joey Kramer all night. And I was like, right, I've got to learn how to do that. I've got to learn to do that with my, great memories.
Good stuff. I mean, we literally would talk for 24 hours solid about this, but
easy, yeah.
With a podcast, you get about an hour before people go, I've had enough now. So,
yeah.
Let's talk about your production side of things. Which side of the glass are you happier on, shall we say?
That's a great question. I obviously love playing drums as my job, but I also have loved taking on this role as a producer, right? Because when I first did it, I kind of cheekily got a load of gear and suddenly self-proclaimed myself as a producer, right? I really didn't know what I was doing, but I'd done enough sessions and watched enough to watch what other people had done, right? And then once I started doing it, I realized really early on that being a producer is more like being a psychiatrist. You know what I mean? It's not an engineer is the technical side. A producer is getting the best out of people, encouraging them, putting them at ease. And I started getting that quite quickly. And because I'm a bit of a chatty twat, like bands were coming in and really liking the vibe and really enjoy it, especially drummers. Drummers would go one way or the other. It'd either be like they'd feel a little bit awkward because the drummer was a producer.
Intimidated.
But once I put them at ease and actually would say, man, that fill you did in the middle eight was amazing. And they kind of go, really? Yeah. Really? I was like, yeah, that's such a brilliant fill. The way it brought back in don't do any of the other fills, by the way, but that one in the middle, right? All the tricks, right, to try and get them to like play less and stuff. So my favorite thing at the moment is if I produce like a singer-songwriter, because I end up playing majority of the instruments as well as producing it.
Sure.
So but I tell you what's weird, and I don't know if you found this, like if you're recording stuff yourself, the drums go on quite late in the process.
Right.
Like I start with a loop or a click, and generally like acoustic guitar and a guide vocal, right? There's your basses. And then you just start building. And the number of times I've sat here and gone, this is sounding great. I haven't put any drums on it, have I? You know what I mean?
No, because it's the backwards way of doing it, isn't it?
And I love bass guitars going on first before drums. I love that idea sometimes. That can be great.
Makes you think of it, doesn't it?
Well, because that can go one or two ways, you see, because generally a bass player is a lazy buggers, right? Love you all, by the way, right? But they'll just, the drummer goes and lays it down and the bass player will just lock in with him, right? So give it to the bass player first with this kind of open tapestry of acoustic guitars, rhythms and pianos and space, and then see what they do then.
They're setting up the groove for you, aren't they?
They're setting up the groove, right? So honestly, mate, I reckon if I was a betting, it's probably 80 to 20 Where if I do that, we stick with the bass first and the drums second, because the drums then lock in with the bass, right? Honestly, and occasionally I'll go, do you want to go and do the bass again? Because I've found a different niche. But it just gives the bass players, who are all generally geniuses, the ones I've been lucky enough to play with, they're all pretty musical geniuses. So it's giving them a really good, not just like, oh, I'm going boom, but so you have to do that as well. You know, it's like the best bass players I know, they don't. As long as they've got that bit, they'll find the other niches. You know, so I love being a producer. I get a real thrill out of it. It's like such a creative, like when someone walks in the morning with something that no one's heard and actually hasn't been given birth to, and then they walk out in the evening with this amazing piece of new arts that didn't exist 8 hours before. It's quite an exhilarating feeling, actually.
You're selling it. I have to say, you're selling it to me. It's and are you, obviously you said about drummers, you know, they can be intimidating. Oh my God, it's him. He's done all this. I mean, you, and I mean this in the greatest respectful way ever. You're a song player. You play songs. Yeah. You're not about chops. You're not about.
Yeah. And I think that's what puts them at ease, because I'm not Mr. You know, I look how fast I could do a paradiddle. I've never been impressed with that. Like all the stuff from, you know, you kind of Dave Weckles and stuff. First of all, Dave, if you're watching, you can do stuff I can't do, right? And you're amazing. However,
secondly, if you're watching, can you be on as a guest?
Yeah. Sure, he's a lovely man, and it's amazing. And that's a certain skill. The guys who can do master classes, can play a double paradiddle quicker than I can, you know, eat my dinner, is amazing, right? That's just not me, because I reckon I've played on probably a few thousand songs, right, over my career, right? And I've never had to play a really, really fast double paradiddle, right? So I'm sure it's great, and it's great for warming up, and it's really good for your rudiments, and kids, you should do it. But you know, do it playing along to a record. You know, that's much more fun.
There you go. That's quality advice. But that's got to be nice, because you know, and I think the older you get, the more content you are just sitting on a groove and going, this fits.
Massively.
Like this. Massively. It's gelling. And I don't know if it's an age thing or what. I don't know, maturity.
I don't know whether it's an age thing. I think interestingly, things have gone full circle, where the big names in especially British drumming at the moment, like Ash and Carl Brazil, for instance, like Ash would just sit on a shuffle, right? Everybody knows Ash can do a great shuffle, right? It's the Ash shuffle, right? Ash has got 500,000 followers on Instagram, right? Because drummers go, that's brilliant. You never ever see Ash do this crazy, and you don't see Carl do it either, right? But they're at the top of the tree, you know, because they play for the songs. That's why there's a great James Blunt documentary out at the moment. I don't know if you've seen it.
It's fabulous.
Brilliant, right? And doesn't Carl come across brilliantly? I messaged him the other day and just said, you come across so well. And he goes, oh, thanks, mate. And then I saw Ash Stone.
I did exactly the same.
Yeah. He must have had something. Because you know what? It wasn't like Carl Brazil or, you know, like session drum. It was Carl who plays drums. I saw Ash at a festival last week with Snow Patrol, right? Hello, mate. How's it going? And I was lucky enough to sit at the side of the stage. And it was like, he didn't do anything that you go, oh, how did he do that? But I tell you what, everything he did was brilliant. Everything. His feel, his groove. Like, and it's just like, that's what drumming is about, because you've got, like, in a puzzle of a song, you've only got so many pieces of that puzzle, right? You haven't got 90 pieces of a 100-piece puzzle, right? If you're a drummer, you're lucky if you've probably got 10, right? If you feel that 10 perfectly, that makes you a great drummer.
It's quite simple, really, isn't it?
It is. It's basic maths, you know. And also, don't be a dick, you know, because the ones, you know, I still know drummers who will overplay when they come in here. It's hilarious, and it's, you know, a couple of times I've had to go, that's great what you're doing. You're clearly not playing this song. I'm so pleased you got that double pedal thing going on, but can you get rid of it? Because I want this. Oh, can you play Billie Jean? That's the best one, by the way. In the studio with a drummer. Can you just play Billie Jean? What? Can you just play Billie Jean? It's the easiest and the hardest bit of drumming of all time.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
There's a great drummer will instantly hit the tempo, all right? Promise you. And a great drummer won't deviate off it, all right? But the number of times I've seen a function band and that drummer cannot sit on that groove without putting fills in. There's no fills in Billy G. You know, love it, man. Love it.
It's you've kind of summed it up there. That's all you need.
Yeah. And the Dave Grohl thing. Did you see the Dave Grohl thing the other day about
the film?
And he's but when he's sitting with Pharrell and he said, I just nicked everything from the Gap Band. And then they showed the clip, bottom. And it's like, yes, he did. He did, because so simple. That the drumming on Nevermind is so simple yet so hard because it's so brilliantly repetitive. It's like a human loop, isn't it? Get him on. He's great.
Oh well, I've tried. He's not the easiest man to get hold of, put it that way.
Quite a popular chap, isn't he?
He's probably quite busy at the moment doing a few.
Have you met him?
I haven't. No. I'd love to, but hey,
he's really nice.
You obviously have.
I have met him. Yeah, I met him. I do one quick clang when I was drumming with Joe Strummer and the Mescaleros back in when was it, 2000. We were on an Australian thing called the Big Day Out. It was a festival and it used to move around Australia. People used to call it the Big Day Off because you basically do this big 60,000 thing and then you'd have 5 days off while the festival travelled across by road. So bands used to do club shows in the middle. So anyway, with Strummer, on that tour was the Chili Peppers, the Foo Fighters, Blink-182, right? And Primal Scream. So anyway, we went and did a show at Sydney Metro, right? So I'm sitting in the dressing room. This guy, he just comes in, he goes, where's your drummer? I went, I'm here. He went, good luck tonight, mate. And I went, why is that? He went, you do know who's here, right? I said, no. He went, Chad Smith, Dave Grohl, Taylor Hawkins, Travis Barker, Darren Mooney. He went, they are all out there. I was like, and then at the end of the gig, they were all just like, man, they weren't about me. They were just, it was because I just played London Calling and the encore, you know what I mean? And they were the nicest people ever, but they wanted to be me for that night. I always thought that was so cool, That's
decent.
So, yeah, Dave Grohl. Yeah.
That is. And I bet you didn't change a thing about your playing. You just
I did think about it. It's funny. 5 minutes before, I think somebody, can't remember who it was, might have been Joe actually. He just put his arm around my shoulder and just went, it doesn't matter who's out there, do exactly what you do every night. And it was a really great, because every drummer will tell you that, if you know there's someone famous there, your brain will go, do something clever, show off a little bit. And your real brain will go, don't be an idiot, just do what you do every night, because that's what people want to hear. They want to hear the show, So you never see Zach do something different with the Who, just because, he does it the same as he did the night before. You don't give a monkeys who's there.
Exactly. Ah, that's an incredible. I like that. That's a cool story.
There you go. It's in the book, everybody.
Oh yeah. You know what? I've actually ordered your book.
Have you?
I've ordered it from somewhere. I don't know where it's from actually, but my wife assisted me buying it the other night. It hasn't turned up.
Okay.
I'll let you know what I think. I'm sure it's going to be. I've read some of the reviews. It's awesome. So.
Thanks, mate. Thank you.
Well, hey, speaking of the book, right? Let's move on to. I don't know how the bloody hell you find the time to do this, but you've started. You've gone down the podcast route as well.
Well, that was So that's tied in with the book. So the book is called Clang, and it's basically a tongue-in-cheek look at the world of celebrity from me not being the A-list celebrity, me being in the next dressing room next to an A-list celebrity, right? Playing for a few famous people. So it was very, very easy. It's like a kind of drummer's guide to trying to be cool when Sting's in the next room or whatever it is, right? And everybody really enjoyed it. Everybody liked the stories. There was no bragging in there. It's literally like, okay, so I'm at Top of the Pops. You'll never guess who's in the next room. That sort of thing, right? Yeah, sure. And people love those stories. So anyway, about just after Christmas, my mate Pete, we went out for a pint. He's like, I think we should do a podcast. And I was like, what do I want to do a podcast for? And he went, we should do a Clang podcast. He said, get people on to tell us about their clangs, right? I was like, it's not a bad idea, right? Wow. Now this thing has started to grow purely because I think people are getting aware of it and they actually want to come on, right? So I did Steve Lillywhite
Oh,
last week.
I saw.
So that's out tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I saw you advertising it. Yeah.
Steve Lillywhite telling me about Bono and David Byrne and Peter Gabriel and all that. We did Baz, the singer with the Stranglers, yesterday. We did Mark Butcher, the cricketer. We did Gaz Top.
I saw that
we
one.
Did oh man, and,
he's a local
Ian
local
McNabb.
boy to me.
Yeah,
He was Hollywell,
now.
wasn't he?
Yeah. He's moved up there now. He's up there now.
Is he?
Cool. He's around the corner from you. Yeah, we did Ian McNabb. So Ian McNabb's telling the stories about when he was in Ringo Starr's band, and people just love telling stories, and it's basically giving people a platform and saying, right, you got 45 minutes to just name drop. And everybody loves a name drop, right? So it's called Clang the Podcast. It's on YouTube. It's very funny. Very funny.
You'll be my name drop tomorrow, you see.
Aim high. Aim higher.
Oh, and do you enjoy doing it? Do you get a buzz from doing it?
I love it, man. I love it because it's like being a pretend TV presenter for like a little while. But I found the more we do, the more what you got to do is you got to set them up. Yeah. So some people aren't as expressive as you think they're going to be. If you hit them with the right, if you know a couple of them, that a couple of their clangs, and then it opens up others.
It opens up the rabbit hole.
Yeah, and listen, mate. If we'll get you on it one day, right? You can tell us all your clangs, everything all the famous. Because I guarantee you, over the years, you've met some famous people.
I suppose.
And the great thing is, by getting different people from different walks of life, you get different clangs. There's no point in asking a load of A-list celebrities. You ask the guy, like we asked my friend Shelley Blonde, is a voiceover artist, right? So she told me some brilliant stories about voiceovers that she's the voice of Lara Croft.
Oh,
so
wow.
So that stuff like that. So everybody's got stories, right? And ours is just a way of giving people a platform, and it's funny as well. Honestly, we did one with a DJ, Griff Griffiths, the other day, and I swear I just sat and laughed for an hour. And a few people watched it and they were like, that's the funniest thing I think of ever. He used to be a stand-up comedian.
Right.
So I did Dale Davis yesterday, Amy Winehouse's bass player. That was really interesting. I might tap Ash up actually, because I saw him the other day. And I thought he'd be good because he's, having worked with so many. But I'll be interested to see what angle an A-list drummer like that, as opposed to kind of me,
I've heard some good stories from Ash, to be honest. So
well, there you go. So I might tap him up.
And doing this, a lot of the time you'll finish recording, or you'll do it before, like we had a natter before.
Yeah.
If you start recording, I've got something I can tell you now. This is great, and obviously you can't repeat those, but I've heard such great stories on these.
But these are great because these are just a chat, aren't they? Like,
yeah.
I've done a few of these where, like, I haven't even heard what the final things sounds like, because to me this is just me and you in the pub having a pint, and you're buying. You know what I mean? So,
hey, of course.
Great.
In the red next time, I'll make sure that happens.
I'll get you a free pint in the red, don't I?
That's fine. All right. This has been fun. I've enjoyed this.
Great, man. Great. And I love what you do. And I'm going to go back and scratch a few of your surfaces as well, and watch a few of your. Well, are they on YouTube, mate?
They're on YouTube. They're on all the download. You can listen to them as podcasts as
really.
Yeah, there's 100. I think there's 100. It's about 160 videos on the channel, because there's like special.
That'll get me through my holiday.
I think it might. Yeah,
I'll just go sit by the pool and listen to your podcast. That sounds like a plan.
One of my favorite. People ask what the favorite ones is, and I think Brian Bennett from the Shadows is one of my.
Oh yeah, man. I did a session with his son Warren. And he's a producer, and all I wanted to do was ask about his dad, like literally. And he's like, "Oh, my dad might pop in later." I was thinking, seriously, if he comes in, I am going to annihilate him, because I'm his biggest fan. What an amazing, him and Clem Contini and people like that.
Well, Clem's been on as well.
When people talk about kind of, who are your influences, and you asked me that before we started, I think. Yeah. But it's funny because I told you I kind of changed direction a little bit, but even in my like in the last kind of 5 or 6 years, I really got into kind of Howard Blaine, and I really got into kind of Brian Bennett, the session guys, the guys who were on all those. Howard Blaine's book blew me away, being in the Wrecking Crew and stuff, and just how he was doing like 5 or 6 sessions a day. And like, I just thought someone asked me a question, went, if you could come back in life as somebody else, who would it be? And I said, Hal Blaine.
Yeah.
I'd love to play on all those records. You know what I mean? I don't want to be an A-list celebrity. I'd love to just go, that record that you hear in the high street, or in the calf, or you're playing drums on it. That must be the greatest feeling.
Did he do Wichita Lineman? I think he did. And that, imagine playing on that.
Yeah. With Carol Kay. You know what I mean? Like, exactly. One of my favorite ever songs. And then you listen to the drums, and amazing. I'm going to hit you with an interesting drum fact that I know, and I want you to go and research it. Okay, because a couple of drummers have disagreed with me, but I think I'm right. There are no crash cymbals on any ABBA songs.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, check it out.
And I think there's a certain Kate Bush album where there's no cymbals on. Stuart Elliott's been on as well. And very anti-cymbals. So
I know. Duran aren't allowed to use a ride cymbal, and when Steve Ferroni did it, they took his ride off him. There's I don't know why that is, but the ABBA one's amazing because everybody goes and checks it out.
That's really, I've never. It's not something you notice, is it? Really?
I know. But I'm sure I'll be proved wrong, but
we'll have a listen. There's a great Brian Bennett story, right? And this blew my mind. And if you've seen the interview, I apologize, but it's a fascinating one. We were talking about once he joined the Shadows, and he said, well, I've got writing credits. He said, for Summer Holiday, and I came up with a chorus. He said, we were in Panto was it Sunderland or something? I said, in Panto, you mean on the stage? And he went, no, we were the band in the pit. And I said, well, isn't that a bit strange? He said, well, we were on our full money, whatever that was, So I said, you think about this, Brian, the equivalent today, imagine going to a Panto and Coldplay are providing because that's what it was like. They were at that. Yeah. There was only that.
They were workaholics back in those days, weren't they? You know what I mean? They worked 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Amazing work ethics.
But can you imagine, that he's written Summer Holiday while he's in the pit, just like, I'll write this up. But that is the equivalent of Coldplay or something similar, Snow Patrol, whatever. Oh, they're providing they're doing the calls and the Swanee whistles when you trousers.
Yeah.
Down,
But if you think about it, it's only the same as like American chat shows where they have a celebrity band there every night. Guest Love's on every night with Jimmy Fallon, isn't
he? Yeah, I suppose. But it just seemed weird to think of that, But the stories I've heard of, I'm so privileged to have got them first hand from these people, first hand over the phone line, obviously. But you get what I'm saying.
Amazing.
The thing I like is this is going to be here forever, and future generations are going, that was fun. They look like coolish people. Well, one of them did anyway. The one who's on it every week.
The thing is, everybody's got a different slant on it. You know what I mean? There's not like we've all played with different people in different guises. Luckily with this one, we haven't gone down the route of so who have you played with, and you have to kind of list them all off, kind of thing. It's like it's more about the general vibe. If anybody wants to know who someone played with, they just go on Wikipedia. But I don't think it's about that. I think it's more about we all know who we are. As I say, I bumped into a few drummers at a few festivals this summer. It's just nothing lovelier than seeing another drummer. And each other ears, and you have a little hug and everything. And it's like it's a fabulous world, the drummers. Do you remember when they used to do the Zildjian days?
Yeah. Oh God,
I love them. Yeah. I used to love them. I used to end up with Jed Lynch in the corner, usually, watching people kind of make tits of themselves. But like, it was such a beautiful time. And over the years, kind of, we all got a bit older and a little bit more mature and a little bit more respected. And I remember the last one we went to was I haven't done them for years, have they? It's about 5 years ago, I think. And I just remember thinking, I felt like a completely different person. Like that I was one of the older people, but everybody knew who I was, and they were really nice. You know what I mean? And everybody I saw I thought was amazing, and there was such a nice repertoire between everybody. There was no competition, no one was networking. You know, I do remember saying that years
I
ago.
hate that word.
The worst place ever you could network as the drummer is at a Zildjian Day, because that's the last place you're ever going to get a gig. That is.
Oh,
But we used to have some real fun at those things.
oh,
Because obviously Tina did them, didn't she? So we missed Tina.
yeah, they were great. They were amazing days, and
Brilliant.
no, it's all good. Look, Smiley, this has been a joy, as you say.
Oh, it's been lovely.
It's been a natter.
We'll
That's
definitely hook up.
yes.
Yeah, man. Well, look, when next time I'm up in Dizerth, I'll give you a shout, and we'll go for a pint. But yeah, I'm going to go on holiday. When is it? Next week, and I'm going to take all of your podcasts with me.
I'll recommend a few that are really good.
Stick them in an email to me. What your top 10, and I'll take your top 10. But I am going to start with Brian Bennett. All right.
Smashing. Hey, Smiley, you're a legend. Thank you, mate.
Thanks, man. Lovely to speak to you.
Bye bye.
Cheers, buddy.
Bye bye.